Ladies and gentlemen, or rough men if you would like. Today on Homebrew Wednesday, I'm going to be showing you how I bottle my alcohol. What I got in front of me over here, whether you can see or not, I'm not sure. Hopefully the angle is okay, hopefully the distance is okay, is my digital scale. I picked this up for about $19.99, probably over a year ago, maybe even 18 months. Best investment I ever made in terms of measuring things. It measures in grams. It's very sensitive. It can measure, it doesn't measure in points of grams, but it starts with 1 and it goes up to thousands before it actually stops. So it's really a very broad range, very important range though, when you're measuring things from spices to hops to adjuncts to grains, in that order, specifically from having to measure 1 gram to several, tens of grams to hundreds of grams, and then ultimately to kilograms when it comes to your grain. So what we're going to be doing today is bottling this mead right here, and there's actually another mead back there that I'm going to be bottling too. It's quite a busy night. I've already kegged 2 beers, transferred 1, and it's like 9:30 or 10, so we're going to be up for a while. Got work tomorrow, but a home brewer's got to do what a home brewer's got to do. Now I'm filming this specifically because the last few videos I've made, I kind of talked, and I don't want it to be like a thing where every week all I do is talk on Homebrew Wednesday. I actually want to show you guys something of what I do. I know this isn't what I promised. I said I might have a brew day, but that will come by the end of February. It's a certainty. I just want to make it perfectly right. So today I'm just going to give you a little 101 on bottling. Now I bottle, by the way, just saying right now, there's water boiling in the kettle, so as soon as that starts to go, I'm going to go get it. So I bottle with just plain sugar, your everyday sugar that you get at the store. I buy Lantic, the brand, natural granulated sugar. It is every 4 grams, it's 15 calories and 4 grams of sugar. So it's really just the pure stuff. I used this sugar at a ratio that I never really read about it. I used it from trial and error, from experience, from those goddamn exploding bottles. Yes, I've had exploding bottles, so you're not alone if you've had them as well. But my experience has taught me a few things. One, you can't use nearly as much of this as you would dextrose. Much finer, refined sugar that specifically, is measured out when you go to your home brewing store in either 180, 190 gram packets or 230, depending if you have a 5 or 6 gallon kit. This kind of sugar should not be used in 10 grams. It should definitely be a lot less, because for whatever reason, there is chemical scientific reasons behind it, but I am not a professional on that. Like I said, trial and error for me. So my general rule is, depending on the style, I use between 5 and 7 grams per liter of your average table sugar, and I always underestimate the amount of liters in the final product. I know that kind of seems arbitrary and it doesn't really make sense, but trial and error has taught me that's the best way to go. Therefore, if I brew 5 gallons, in my head, rather than being 18.9 liters, it might only be 17 or 16 liters. And I judge by the actual level in the carboy, because I don't measure my actual final volume to the exact T. When I brew 10 gallons, I estimate that when I split it off into 2 6-gallon carboys, there's approximately 5 gallons in each, when in reality there might only be, it could be as low as 4.5, I don't know. It depends on the day, it depends on how vigorous the boil was, it depends on how my efficiency was, between extraction of liquid, between how much the grains absorb. So there's a lot of factors. So generally I give that 2 to 3 liter leeway, which avoids the exploding bottles and avoids potential death of felines, canines, and injuries to human beings. So we're going to measure this out. I can hear that the water's about to boil. We're going to measure it out for this bad boy. This is pretty much 5 gallons and it's a mead, so I want it a little bit more carbonated. So I'm probably gonna do 7 grams for 17 liters. Okay, so we're gonna do the math. We're gonna convert that into some nice syrup by adding boiling water to the sugar, stirring it a bit. I use a sanitized spoon to stir, and then I actually just use the momentum in the glass to really make sure that it's dissolved. And yeah, once that's done, I add the sugar into the carboy and then add the mead on top of the sugar. Never, ever, ever, ever add sugar to the alcohol, to the mead, to the beer, to the cider. Don't do it. Bad things can happen, and I will stand to that. Okay, be right back. So, here we are, doing our bottling. The clip where I wanted to show you the siphoning didn't work out, got distracted, other things came up, whatever. The point is that I'm here, the sugar has been influenced into the beer, it's all mixed up, evenly distributed, we hope, and I'm sitting here bottling these bad boys. This is for my personal collection, and just so you know what that means, I have personal collection brews and I have brews that I share amongst friends, family, lovers. People that I don't like generally don't get my beer, so you know, fuck them. But everyone else deserves to share in the homebrew spirit. I am a big supporter of teaching, of allowing people to learn, the people that are interested, so on and so forth. So, I ended up using 120 grams of table sugar based on the math of 7 grams per 17 liters. It actually came to 119. But I decided to give it that very generous extra 1 gram because I thought it was deserved. And yeah, so now we're sitting here, we're gonna bottle all this. I still got so much to do and the time's just passing by. I'm honestly being not as productive as I usually am on a night like this, but who knows, what are you gonna do? And the funny thing is, this mead in particular is probably one of the clearest meads that I've ever made. I don't know what I did differently. The thing is, I did something that I maybe don't normally do in terms of fermentation temperature. And that is, I let the mead sit at about 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit for days. So around 21 degrees for a long time. And then bang, I boosted it up to about 80 to 85 Fahrenheit. So I put it up 4 or 5 degrees easy. And what happened is fermentation kicked in again really hard. And then as soon as I stopped the crazy fermentation and put it back down to the 21 point, everything just completely dropped out. Everything. It was crystal. I've never made such clear alcohol before in my life. And I actually had 2 meads going at this time. This one and the other one I was going to bottle. And I don't know. It's the only possible explanation that there is that once it gets like the majority of the fermentation set, you let it sit at 21, it continues fermenting slowly. I don't know if the yeast started to settle out. Then I ramped up the fermentation temperature by about 5 degrees. I was maybe sitting at 26, possibly hit 27 at some points. Let it sit there until I saw the fermentation really was coming to a slow stop. And then put it back down to 21, boom, crystal, nothing else. Unbelievable, really. But definitely recommend to anyone to try. I should try it a second time before I suggest to people to try it out for the first time, because I don't know that was the actual catalyst. But it did it to 2 meads. I mean, I've never had that before. Anyways, so that's that. So this is how I bottle. I sit, me and my lonesome on the floor. Sometimes my roommate helps out. He's capping these while I'm infusing the beer into each bottle. It's actually the most efficient time, like the least time consuming process. He's not here because I'm filming and I don't want his face blocking my beautiful face, so I decided to keep him off the camera. So yeah, what I wanted to do originally for this, because we were speaking of teas, is that I wanted to add a tea to this mead, because this is I don't know if I call it well, it's not a mellow mead because there's no fruit, but I wouldn't call it a sweet mead at all. It's definitely going to end up being a dry mead. And FYI, for those who have never used tea to infuse a beer or a mead before, the best time to introduce tea, and I will stand by this no matter what, is at the same time that you introduce the sugar for priming. I've done it at different points. I've done it during the mash, I've done it during the boil, I've done it during the primary, I've done it during the secondary, and I've done it right before bottling. And by far, my best results have been at priming. There's the most taste, there's the least disruption to any other flavor development, meaning that if you introduce hot tea into the secondary, you're going to fuck some shit up. And the yeast doesn't necessarily like to be struck with near boiling temperatures, which, you know, any non-amateur brewer would know, but it took me a year and a half to figure out all the different steps that I could do to make it as perfect as possible. And you know what? I can make a pretty damn good tea anything at this point. I know my specific quantities, my specific length of time that I let it steep, and I know probably what brands, not brands, but what types of teas not to use. Like, I find black teas a little intrusive. Oolong is very strong. Green can add, I don't know what it is, but to me it adds that tint of iron metallic type taste, and I wouldn't put it in anything but a stout, funny enough, just because I find that it's got that same flavor profile when it ferments at too high of a temperature. So, whatever, I'm rambling, but those are my little tips about tea. But yeah, so I mean, whatever, this is it. I hope it's been a little informative in terms of my grams to priming sugar ratios. Like I said, if you use dextrose, you want to use 10 grams per liter. That'll do the job. If you use brown sugar, I would use less. But then again, I've had times where brown sugar doesn't actually ferment out all the way. Don't know why, but it left me at one point with a flat beer and a little sweetness in the end. But I think that was just a bad experience. I don't think you'll get that if you do it properly. So again, get your sugar ready, add your half cup about of boiling water, dissolve it with a spoon with just a circular flow, shake it about. When it's dissolved, add it to your empty carboy, siphon the beer onto the sugar, but make sure that you don't get any yeast from the bottom into the hot sugar. Let it rise a little bit, then set your siphon completely down, pick up the yeast. It is going to help you prime your bottles so it doesn't get killed from the hot water. And yeah, and then all you got to do is siphon that into bottles and you got yourself a nice homebrew. So, cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Again, your host Mike. Hope this video was of some fun, of some help. And we'll see you soon for another talk, another brew day. Well, first brew day. And whatever. Peace. Later.
If you can't hear what I'm trying to say.